The Hornets giveth and the Hornets taketh away, both in big ways. They split the weekend. They went on an all-time heater, and then they got absolutely destroyed. We recap the weekend today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free. We're available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. Find him on everyhornetsboxscore.com. He's also hosting Locked On NBA with Matt Moore and Hayes. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We also have a newsletter, a Locked On Hornets newsletter, a daily one-stop, we'll call it a one-stop shop for your ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. We can call it that. Sign up for free right now, lockedondaily.com. LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Hornets newsletter. Well, if you're reading the newsletter, if you're reading every Hornets box score, you saw that the Hornets went on what was, again, an all-time heater, man, 145 to 134. You know, I wanted the 20-point win. It looked like it was going to happen. And then the Spurs in the fourth quarter, in the second half, really, it was Freaky Friday. It was freaky first half, freaky second half, because the Spurs turned into the Hornets, what they were doing in the first half, and the Spurs scored 40 points and then 39 in that fourth. Either way, I wanted the 20-point victory. I'll have to settle for an 11-point victory. I will gladly take it. The Hornets set a franchise record. They hit 26 threes in this game. Doug, I was immediately reminded, do you remember a few years back when the Hornets had a stretch where opposing teams against James Borrego and that style of defense would set their franchise record for three-pointers made? And it happened, I think, maybe 3 times that season. It was like 2 in a week and a half worth of time. The numbers being posted, it was like 22, maybe 21, something to that effect. So the fact that the Hornets got to 26, that's a wowza number. That's not, I guess, Golden State level, but that's a wowza number to get to 26 and then 18 three-pointers made in the first half. Just absolutely ridiculous stuff.
It's insane. I'll tell you that I did not want the 20-point win because I wanted the win. You know, I think they needed the win. But I wanted something to restore my sanity, to remind me what real life is. I was losing my grip on what reality was. I was starting to question if the entire universe was a simulation when Josh Green hit his 5th straight three, when Nick Smith Jr., who has not been shooting the basketball well really all season, I mean, even going back to some of his summer league play, when he hit 5 straight threes, when LaMelo Ball, who has not been shooting well since coming back from injury, when he started to hit 3 after 3 after 3. We've at least seen him have a couple of little stretches like that. But nothing like what Green and Nick Smith Jr. put together. So I think the second half at least brought me back down to earth in a way that I think was healthy for my mental. And then they came crashing back down to earth against the Los Angeles Clippers, returning to what they have been all season, which is the worst shooting team in basketball this season. And I wonder, I mean, I'd have to do a little research, but I think they've probably been the worst shooting team in the NBA over the past like 5 or 6 seasons. Like the shooting on this team is virtually non-existent outside of Miles Bridges. And, you know, he struggled as well in that game against the Clippers, and now he'll get some rest against the Hawks.
Well, it's taken a nosedive here. The shooting that was there with LaMelo, what we've documented that, where he was shooting well, and then it's been a long time since he's been shooting well. Josh Green is just not coming in consistently enough, because you'll look at the percentage and you'll see overall he's going to finish with a really nice three-point percentage. It's just not going to be consistent enough because we'll have watched the games. The good news is they televise them. Just because people don't watch them doesn't mean they don't televise them. They are on TV, so we'll know about Josh Green just having the inconsistency. Do you want to start with the good or the bad? Like, what do we want to go with what happened most recently? Or do we want to go with what happened chronologically? Like, can we just can we bathe in the fun a little bit? Let's just do that for a second. With the game against the Spurs,
you asked me a question and then answered it. I love that.
For sure, because I didn't want you to take that away from me. I saw your face and I thought you were going bad. I was like, nah, never mind. Give me the basketball back. It's my turn. No, I want to bathe in the fun for a second because I want to go through these stat lines where everybody had a nice stat line that actually got some real run. And at least anybody that put it in the bucket had a real nice stat line. All the starters get to double figures. Miles Bridges is 7 of 14 with 21 points. Mark Williams was 5 of 6 with a double-double, 14 and 10. LaMelo, it was his first All-Star game in terms of scoring the basketball in quite some time. It was the first heater LaMelo game that we've seen in a while, and that was good. 27 points for him, 7 of 11 from 3. Daquan Jeffries, who's been giving us a little something here, honestly, recently. 13 points, 3 of 7 from 3. Josh Green, 6 of 9, 20. Nick Smith Jr., 9 of 12, 6 of 7 from 3. Again, the 26 points. That was great to see from him. 5 assists, too. Like, they finished with 42 assists, which is a little underrated storyline. That's wild. They I think, led the league or were top 5 a few years back at 28 a game. Just to put that in reference, they had 42 assists in that game against San Antonio. It reminded me also of the time where they put up the 150 burger on the Pacers. It was a wild one that you don't see that a whole lot, but you're right. The shooting has been so bad recently. The fact that they just decided, you know what, we're going to make all of our shots in this game and this game alone for a tanking season. Okay, I'll take my fun Friday night game against San Antonio for the sweep.
Yeah, it was awesome. They set a franchise record for made three-pointers. When they reset that record at some point in the hopefully not so distant future, someone's going to look back at this game and not really understand the context of just how poorly this team has shot, just how much of an aberration this game was for the Charlotte Hornets. And amongst all of the gaudy offensive numbers, I thought they also put together a really good defensive plan as well, essentially saying, Jeremy Sohan, go ahead and shoot. Shoot whenever you want to. We don't care. We're going to guard the few shooters that you do have, the few drivers that you do have. We're going to worry about those guys. And Sohan took the bait hard, and it allowed the Hornets to get out into transition a few times off those missed threes. And that was the big thing. Like, these three-pointers that they hit, most of them were not created in some kind of nice ball movement half-court set. It was just simply beating the San Antonio Spurs back down the floor. They didn't have Wemby as a block threat, so they could drive at will and then kick in those opportunities that they did have. But so much of it came in transition, where they were able to get quick threes up in rhythm. And shout out Josh Green and Nick Smith Jr. for doing that in one game. It's just, I don't really want to go to the bad so much with the Clippers game, as just more so like the question that I think a lot of people will have coming off of these two games, which is, how do you square these two performances? You know, why can't the Hornets find a happy medium between these two games? Why does it oscillate so wildly between amazing three-point performances all around to Mark Williams has a great game against LA and no one else does?
Yeah, we can get to that. That's the tease. We'll bathe in the fun for a second. Now it's time to transition maybe to the dark side. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Bees everywhere!
We can go to oscillating. That's what we'll do. We'll oscillate as well as the Hornets did this weekend. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the 2025 NBA draft. We'll give you a preview for their next game. It's all still to come right here, Locked On Hornets. First, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center with all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You can go beyond just managing money and start building wealth. You might be surprised at how much you're spending on things like food delivery or streaming subscriptions. With Monarch, you'll see exactly what your money is where your money is going, so you can budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, Monarch Money makes it easy to check your finances, track spending, and even plan for long-term goals all in one place. And if you're managing money with a partner, it's never been smoother. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals together, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. This episode is also brought to you by Hungry Root. I always have the D'Angelo, the Hungry Root, R&B for you. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've always struggled to find the time between work, life, and trying to eat healthier. I'd buy things I didn't need and still ended up stressed about what to cook. Then I discovered Hungry Root. It's been a total game changer. Hungry Root handles your grocery shopping and meal planning, recommending meals based on your taste and health goals. From anti-inflammatory to high-protein options, I need that. They've got it all. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. Quick, healthy, and delicious meals delivered straight to your door. It doesn't get easier than this. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, you can get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Don't miss out. The Hungry Root. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So how can the Hornets go back and forth from winning a game the way they did, putting up 145, and then losing a game the way they did, 123-88? Yeah, I go back to Steve Clifford. I've been going back a lot in this episode, but I go back to Steve Clifford last year when somebody asked him, you win against the Celtics, but you lose to Detroit, who was way worse than they are this year, as we all know. How does that happen? And Steve got mad at the question. He was saying, wait, you know, that's just how the NBA is. Like, it's all based off of matchups. It's all based off of off nights. It's all whatever. It's all completely random. And he went back to that question the rest of the year and referenced it as, this person just, you don't know the NBA. You don't know what you're talking about if you ask this question. How could this happen? How can you keep going back and forth? So it just reminds me of Steve Clifford being mad at that question from last year. This is the association, dude. Like, what have you? So, but I do understand, right? When we talk about it, it's can we hit 120 or can we even hit 110 points and not set the franchise record for assists and three-pointers made in a game? Can we find some kind of happy medium, as you mentioned, with the offense? And I really do think it was just obviously, I don't know about law of averages, but they just hit every three they took. Like, it was just crazy. It was all about the three-point shot. It was kick out, catch and shoot. Let me record this assist. Let me record this made three-pointer, and let's reap the benefits. Like, let's just go ahead and score 145 points. It was just the fact that it was the ultimate shot making that we have not seen really all year long, and everybody decided to do it, which was crazy.
Yeah, so I'm totally with Steve Clifford on that the NBA is random. Even great teams will step on rakes and they will lose their three-point shooting prowess that they've had all season long, and they'll get beat by 10 by a team that they have no business losing to. I mean, you look at the Rockets last night, they were down 20 for most of the game and needed a miracle comeback against the 76ers. The 76ers have no one. So, I mean, right. This happens to good teams. But the Hornets are not a good team. So this is a difference. Steve Clifford was speaking about teams that I think at least had some idea of how they wanted to win a basketball game, and on most nights attempted to execute it. The difference is this team, and you can fault injuries, you can fault coaching, you can fault the best player, the most paid player on the team, LaMelo Ball, you can fault the leader on the team and Miles Bridges. I think there's probably a little bit of blame to go all the way around, but they have not found a way really all season to win. And I don't know that they're going to really find it for the rest of the season. It's probably something they're going to have to take care of again in the second offseason under Charles Lee with a little healthier, maybe a slightly different roster. they're going to have to figure that out. But they don't have a way to win. You look at the first half of the game against San Antonio, and it was so much ball movement. It was LaMelo Ball looking for other people, assisting and finding Josh Green and finding Nick Smith Jr. open off of his own drive and in transition, pushing the pace. And San Antonio let them push the pace. The Clippers did not, but also LaMelo Ball was more willing to move the ball. In this game against Los Angeles, I think he was like 4 of 15 from the field. He was looking for his own shot. And what has unfortunately been the case since he's come back from injury, when he's looking for his own shot, he's not hitting it enough. And that's really been the story of the Hornets offense. It kind of comes and goes as LaMelo Ball does, unless LaMelo Ball's not playing, and then it comes and goes as Miles Bridges goes. So yeah, they just don't have a sustainable way to not even win basketball games, but they don't even have a sustainable way to compete in basketball games. And I think that's the big difference between this team and the teams that Steve Clifford talked about.
Yeah, and it's all about what you rely on most, and then what do you have to combat that, and what's something reliable enough to rely on, if that makes sense. But shooting threes at a high volume and not necessarily being a great shooting team, that's not a recipe for success. If you shoot a lot of threes, and I know that number has gone down since the beginning of the season, but if you are a team that likes to let it fly from deep, and yet LaMelo certainly has tailed off considerably. Even if Miles has gone up, Josh Green had a rough month and a half stretch already. That's been going into this. Nick Smith Jr., same thing. If you have a lot of volume and just not quite the shot making, that's not something that's reliable. I go to Boston, who relies on a ton of 3-pointers, but they're also tremendous defensively. So it gives them a great base to get back to. Hey, if we're not hitting shots, they don't attack the rim nearly as much as some people would like, but their defense is incredible. And they've got the switchy guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and they have great defensive principles. They got Derek White, they got Drew Holiday. Like that's how you win a championship. If the three, what you want to do offensively, if that's not falling, well, we also have this other elite part of our game. We're asking for another like standard average part of the Hornets game if the three isn't falling, and it just isn't. And it's also been well documented outside of Miles Bridges, who else is getting to the rack on this team? The answer is nobody, right? So this is all about what you can rely on and what's your identity. What can you go back to? What's your camp that you can go back to for safety? And they just don't have a lot that they can go back to because of safety.
I think the other answer to this question is that the Hornets will take what another team allows them to take, and the San Antonio Spurs turn the ball over a ton, and the Hornets were able to generate a lot of offense off that. They were able to generate some second chance points. LA, they took care of the basketball and also played reliable defense. And the Hornets, they go from making 26 3-pointers to making 6 3-pointers on 33 shots.
Oh, yeah.
At 56% from three, 18% from three. So, it's weird. Like, the answer to this question is pretty simple, but the answer to how to fix it is very complicated, and it's probably going to take both Jeff Peterson addressing some of the roster deficiencies. It's going to take, obviously, guys staying healthy. Like, do they take this kind of wild swing if even just one of Grant Williams, Trey Mann, or Brandon Miller were 100% healthy? You just, again, on nights where LaMelo Ball, and there have been a lot of them, unfortunately, when LaMelo Ball is not shooting the basketball well, they've just had to hope and pray that Miles Bridges could steady them. And on this night against LA, Miles Bridges could not do that. And that's like, Miles is allowed to have a bad game, particularly how well he's played over the past couple of weeks. But you needed one more guy to be able to step up, and the rest of the guys on the roster are barely hanging on to their NBA careers. So, and they didn't just get a miracle performance from NSJ and Josh Green like they got in the previous game. So, this is a difficult puzzle to solve for and Charles Lee to get can he get this team next season to really buy into the defensive end of the floor? Because I don't think that they're fully bought in there yet.
Last thing with Steve Clifford, we went through what his thoughts were on the question of how can you beat the Celtics one night and lose to the Pistons the other. Charles Lee gave us a similar answer when he was taking questions during that horrid 3-game losing streak. See, when you do it 3 times in a row, I don't know if I can listen to that comment. That comment rubbed me the wrong way when Charles Lee said, look, this happens. This is something that just happens in the NBA. I remember the text line being flabbergasted at the very notion that this happened. And they were right too. Like, I was actually with them when Charles says, hey, this happens. I was like, man, it actually doesn't. This is actually an unprecedented 3-game losing streak that you're going on right now. So just a very different context in how they were answering that question in the first place, but also it just reminded me of, like, I started twitching going back to, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, when they were on the 3-game losing streak, and Charles Lee went back to that saying just how random the NBA is. I was like, yeah, but this happened 3 times in a row. 4, if you count that Denver Nuggets loss that was thrown in there for a 4-game losing streak record. It's a record for a reason, because it hadn't happened before, so it actually doesn't happen. Anyways, that I went back to a dark place. Yeah, sorry, I was twitching a little bit.
And all you can hope is that he doesn't feel that way behind the scenes. That's all. All right, what do you want me? Essentially, what's being said behind the eyes is, what do you want me to say? What do you look at this? What do you want me to say? And Clifford, to his credit, would occasionally say that. Like, he would say, like, what do you want me to, I mean, you look, well, what do you want me to say? You look at the roster. You know? So, I don't know that him saying that is necessarily going to help. And so particularly for a first year coach, young coach, not been a head coach before, it would be different if it were a seasoned head coach who had, if it were, I don't know, Budenholzer or somebody else. And then they did that, you'd be like, all right, come on, man. Like, you've been around the block a time or two. But I think young coach trying to get his team to play better. Sure. You just hope things are happening behind the scenes.
He was honest early. I'm not even saying he's not honest anymore, but he's protecting the team. He's been protecting the team for a long time now. He's just not going to dabble into any kind of criticism. I think the team is fielding enough criticism. I don't feel Charles Lee thinks it necessary to go to the podium and criticize his team in a very public space at this point. So I'm not even saying that I have an issue with how he's handled that. I think you're right, though. And the good news is, me as podcast host and radio host, I don't have to. I can bash it, right? Like, I don't want to hear that as a fan. I want to hear that it doesn't happen, and I have an answer for it. And anyways, that's what
but see, that's the thing to take away, in my opinion, from those answers, is that if he had an answer, if he thought the answer existed within the current context of what he's dealing with, then I think he would say that. Then I think he would say, look, this needs to happen and this needs to happen, and then we'll compete harder. But I think he knows what we all know, whether we want to admit it or not, which is that this roster still needs a serious overhaul, that this team still needs to answer some very hard questions about who will lead this team, who is capable of leading this team in the future. And I wonder if they're just waiting for these ping pong balls to drop.
Well, right. That's the answer. The answer is Cooper Flagg. What if he just said, "Look, guys, we just need Cooper"? That's the answer. Coming up next,
with Mr. Cooper.
Yep. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere.
We'll get to Cooper Flagg. We'll get to the 2025 NBA draft and give you a little preview against Atlanta. That's all still to come. LOH. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's easy to use, available in over 30 states, and it lets you mix and match projections across different sports. Prize Picks makes it simple. You can start your lineup in less than 60 seconds and stay engaged all game long. And when you win, your money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around. Plus, every Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25%. Giving even more value to your lineup. You can download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Well, we talked about Cooper Flagg getting hurt at the Spectrum Center. He's already a Hornet. The jokes, they came crashing in like the Kool-Aid man. We heard every single one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, is what it was. No. Oh, no. That's what it was. Cooper Flagg looks like he's fine. If he doesn't suit up for this 116 matchup that Duke has on Friday, he's going to suit up for the Sunday game in the round of 32 matchup, whoever they'll play. Doug, Duke wins the ACC tournament without Cooper Flagg, and people were making it this hurdle that they had to overcome. It's a big hurdle, but it's nice to have 2 lottery picks and 3 other draftable guys on your team. 5 projected NBA draft picks outside of Cooper Flagg and outside of Malik Brown, who might get a look as well. So Duke, they win the ACC tournament. If you want a local team to watch as it pertains to who the Hornets might be interested in, you don't have to go very far to watch the Blue Devils.
Yeah, but you won't be able to watch 2 of the other guys, Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey, that the Hornets could be in line to select because Rutgers is not playing in the NCAA tournament. Are they playing in the NIT? Did they even get an invite to the NIT?
If they did, they probably turned it down. Like that's what every team is doing. If you go to the NIT, then it's just like, no, we'd rather recruit. We don't think we're going to get a lot of money off of this because we're going to open our gym and nobody's going to come watch this NIT game. So I don't know to answer your question, but a lot of teams have turned down that invite.
More like NOT. Okay, so does it matter to you at all that we're not going to be able to see Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey in the pressure cooker of the NCAA tournament?
No, that's a good question, because if we're watching Con Knipple and Kaman Malawash, stay away from the jokes. Stay away just for a little bit.
I didn't say anything.
If we're looking at those guys, then something has gone horribly wrong in the lottery. Right? So you're right. It's Cooper, and then if we're considering anybody else, that means, oh boy, lottery luck, not our friend this year. You're right. Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, they would be nice to watch. You know, I read an article a while back about how we overrate the performances in March Madness from some of these guys. I wonder how true that still is, because it was a long time I read it. But since then, I do feel like some of the stars that don't get to the tournament in terms of these like top 3 guys, right? These top 3-4 guys in the draft, if they don't make the tournament, you do leave yourself asking, like, what the hell happened? I can't help but think of a Markelle Fultz, who did not get to the tournament at Washington. I can't, and his career didn't pan out for some of the weirdest reasons ever for a number 1 overall pick. Ben Simmons, we had our All-NBA selection from him, and then eventually that waned as his career went on. I would like to do the numbers on this. I do think it matters a little bit. I do like when your top guy goes out there and absolutely balls. Now, Brandon Miller, I believe, he got shut down on that San Diego State run, but it was a little harder to evaluate because Brandon Miller was playing for this really talented Alabama team. They were the number 1 overall seed. San Diego State was in the Sweet 16, I believe they played him, if not round of 32. But San Diego State, just a team full of grown men that were 23 years old. They were a lot older, you know, locking up a Brandon Miller that was like 18 at the time. So it's all context-based. Yes, to answer your question, I would like to see some of these stars battle it out and play well on the big stage to show you I'm ready for this. And now Rutgers doesn't even have the opportunity. Perhaps that's a question within itself that Rutgers doesn't even get there. But I can't tell you it's going to deter me from drafting one of them at number 2 or number 3.
Well, see, that's what I think it makes this question interesting, because I think it would be different if these 2 players did not play for the same team that did not make the tournament. And you have to think, like, why didn't this team, and we'll investigate this as we continue to move through the. I don't think
maybe
that
not a question. Maybe not a question. It's like coaching, whatever. How the hell did this happen?
Was it coaching? Were all of the role players from the JV team? Like, what happened that resulted in Rutgers not being able to make it, despite having two of the best players, the best NBA prospects? But so many times, the best college players aren't the best NBA players, and and vice versa. It's just a different skill set. It's a different game, man. I was watching Duke Louisville, and then I was flipping between, I think it was either that game or Auburn, Tennessee. I was flipping between those games and Warriors Knicks. And it's just like, you need to do that if you haven't. Even these tournament games. Watch a tournament game versus just an average Monday night NBA game, and you're like, wow, the game, it's two different games. They're both playing basketball, but it is just in terms of the pace of play, in terms of the complexity of the movement of player and ball. It is just a vastly different thing. And so, yeah, while I think it's fair to say, man, I'd love to see how these guys do in pressure situations, because what it's going to do is it's going to put more onus on Jeff Peterson and Charles Lee when they all get together and sit down with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. They've got to look that guy in the eye and try to figure out, does this guy got it? You know, they won't have that evidence of, okay, he can hit the big shot in the big moment. He's whatever that, thing is, he's got it. They're going to have to figure that out in a room instead of on tape, on television, in front of everyone. It makes it more difficult, but at the same time, talent is going to win in the NBA, and these two guys obviously have talent.
Well, and it reminds me, too, just going back to some of these other players that have won the tournament. I think what is true is just because a guy shines in the tournament, it doesn't mean they're going to pan out in the NBA. If you have these breakout March Madness stars, it doesn't mean that they should be drafted all that much higher. We can go to, I don't know, like Shabazz Napier is a name that comes to mind. LeBron's stamp of approval for Shabazz. I think he was a Hornets pick.
He was a Hornets pick, got traded for?
PJ Hairston?
You are correct, sir.
Okay. Yeah,
you are still
starter.
your sicko badge. You get to keep your sicko badge.
Starter, PJ Hairston, during the playoff year, by the way. Shabazz Napier takes UConn on this incredible run where they're the 8 seed that wins the championship, but Shabazz, not a great NBA player. Also, really small guy, right? Like, just didn't have the tools that you would want out of a lead NBA guard, and so that kind of stuff can happen. It's tough. Do your stars have to perform and step up to the challenges, or the guy that are going to be your top 5 picks? Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. Man, some of these top prospects too, they're going to random schools like Markelle Fultz, Washington. And I guess I'm going back a little farther away now, but Ben Simmons, LSU, Cade Cunningham, Oklahoma State. I think he performed well in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. I think they made a little run, maybe won a couple games. I could be wrong on that, but I remember Cade playing well. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Cooper plays. I think his impact is going to be felt all around. It's nice when you don't have just an ISO. The only way I can impact this game is by scoring. He can do it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So I feel confident that when Cooper comes back, he's going to go gangbusters.
Yeah, for sure. So I want you to think about this question, and I want you, the listener, to think about this question. Maybe even leave us a comment on this YouTube video. But we're not going to answer the question today. We're going to answer it tomorrow because we don't have time. But I want to know, Walker, who would you not give up? Is there a single player on this team right now that you would not give up in order to be guaranteed Cooper Flagg in the NBA draft? That's the question. Don't answer it. Don't answer it today because we don't have time. Do it tomorrow.
There's the tease. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for making us your first listen today. Locked On Hornets, make your first listen every day. We appreciate that. And then make Locked On NBA your second listen every day. Also read everyhornetsboxscore.com. Doug Branson is in charge of that and Locked On NBA. He's also texting you. You can find his text information on the show notes posted every single day. I'm Walker Mayo. Listen to me every single weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. on Wes and Walker, Sports Radio 92.7 WFNZ. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.